The mockery, the massive Zephyrian warships hung in Earth's atmosphere like dark clouds of death, their sleek hulls gleaming with an otherworldly metal that seemed to absorb light itself. From the command bridge of the flagship Dominion's edge, Commander Vex surveyed the broken planet below with 4 eyes that sparkled with contempt. His elongated fingers, each ending in razor-sharp claws, drummed against the control panel as he processed the tactical reports streaming across his displays. "Pathetic," he muttered in his native tongue, a series of clicks and hisses that his universal translator converted to standard galactic. "Absolutely pathetic." The bridge crew, a mix of Zephyrian officers with their distinctive blue-scaled skin and towering 8-foot frames, shared knowing glances. They had seen this expression on their commander's face before, on 17 different worlds across 3 star systems. It was the look of profound disappointment mixed with barely contained disgust. Tactical. Officer Zaranine approached the command platform, her scaled head bowed in respect. "Commander, the final resistance pockets have been neutralized. Earth's military infrastructure is completely destroyed. Their governments have either surrendered or been eliminated." Vex's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. 3 days. It took us exactly 3 days to conquer an entire planet. He turned to face his crew, his voice rising with theatrical disappointment. "The intelligence reports claimed these humans were formidable. They spoke of their creativity, their stubbornness, their refusal to yield. What did we find instead?" The bridge fell silent as Vex paced, his claws leaving shallow scratches in the metal floor. "We found a species so weak, so fundamentally inferior, that they couldn't even provide us with adequate entertainment. Do you remember the Crystani resistance on Vortax Prime? They held out for 2 standard months. The Hylian warriors fought us for 6 weeks in their underground cities." He gestured dismissively toward the view screen showing Earth's scarred surface. "These humans folded like paper the moment our first bombardment began. Their vaunted nuclear weapons couldn't even penetrate our basic shields. Their finest military minds couldn't adapt to simple energy weapon tactics that every civilized species mastered millennia ago." Communications Officer Nex 4 spoke up from his station. "Sir, we're still receiving scattered transmissions from human survivors. Should we track them down?" Vex waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Let them huddle in their holes and caves. What threat could a few thousand scattered primitives pose to the Zephyrian Empire? They've already proven they lack the intelligence and courage necessary for meaningful resistance." What Commander Vex didn't know was that 3 kilometers beneath the ruins of what had once been Geneva, Switzerland, a very different conversation was taking place. Dr. Elena Vasquez, her face illuminated by the soft glow of jury-rigged computer screens, studied the data streaming from hidden sensors placed throughout the planet's major cities. "They're not even bothering to patrol the underground sectors anymore," she said to the small group of survivors gathered around her makeshift command center. "Their arrogance is exactly what we hoped for." Captain James Chen, his military uniform, torn and stained but his bearing still proud, nodded grimly. The psychological profile was accurate. They see us as insects because we didn't fight them the way they expected. They have no concept of strategic retreat. Elena's fingers flew across her keyboard, pulling up schematics and energy readings. "We've had 72 hours to study their technology. Their ships operate on quantum resonance drives, their weapons use focused plasma streams, and their shields generate electromagnetic barriers. All of it is impressive, but it's also predictable." Marcus Webb, an engineer who had been working on experimental propulsion systems before the invasion, looked up from a partially disassembled alien device. "I've figured out how their communication arrays work. They use a centralized network with primary nodes on each ship. If we can disrupt the command frequency, we can blind them temporarily." "Temporarily won't be enough," Chen said. "We need to hit them hard enough that they can't recover." Alina smiled, and there was something predatory in her expression. "Who said anything about temporarily?" "Marcus, show them what you've been working on." Marcus activated a holographic display that showed a complex device roughly the size of a briefcase. "I call it a cascade disruptor. Instead of just jamming their communications, it feeds false data back through their network. We can make their own ships report whatever we want them to report." "Elaborate," Chen said, leaning forward. "Imagine if their sensors showed empty space where our weapons were located. Or if their targeting systems couldn't lock onto our positions because their computers thought we were somewhere else entirely. Better yet, imagine if we could make their automated defense systems identify their own ships as hostile targets." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Alina was the first to speak. "How many of these devices can you build? With the materials we've salvaged from their crashed scouts? Maybe 20, but 20 might be enough if we place them strategically." Chen stood and walked to a large map of the world that covered one wall. Red dots marked the locations of known alien positions, while blue dots showed confirmed human survivor communities. The Zephyrians have positioned their fleet in a standard occupation formation, 17 ships in low orbit with the command vessel at the center. They're maintaining this pattern because they believe we're no longer a threat. They're broadcasting their contempt on open channels. Alina added, "I've been monitoring their communications. They're actually complaining about how boring Earth is compared to other conquests." Commander Vex filed a report yesterday describing humans as disappointingly fragile and recommending that future invasions skip species with our technological level entirely. Marcus laughed bitterly. "They think we're too primitive to understand their technology. They're leaving wreckage unguarded because they assume we can't reverse engineer anything useful from it." "That's going to be their fatal mistake," Chen said. "Alina, what's the status on the orbital weapon platforms?" "Damaged, but repairable. The aliens destroyed the obvious installations, but they missed the deep space early warning satellites. With some modifications, we can turn those into kinetic bombardment platforms. They won't have the destructive power of our old military satellites, but they'll be completely invisible to Zephyrian sensors, because they don't know the platforms exist," Chen concluded. "They only destroyed what they could see from orbit." Alina nodded. "We have assets they don't know about, technology they don't understand, and most importantly, we have something they've never encountered before, which is a species that views total defeat as just another tactical position. Above them, unaware of the growing storm, Commander Vex stood in his private quarters aboard the Dominion's Edge, dictating his personal log. The chamber was a testament to Zephyrian military efficiency, with weapon displays and trophies from conquered worlds lining the walls. Personal log, Commander Vex, Day 3 of Earth occupation. I must record my profound disappointment with this campaign. The humans have proven to be the weakest species we have ever encountered. Their resistance lasted less than 72 hours, and even that was generous. Most of their forces surrendered after the first orbital bombardment." He paused, looking out through the transparent aluminum window at the planet below. "I have fought battles against civilizations that forced us to develop new weapons, new tactics, new strategies. The Hellion Empire made us reconsider our approach to urban warfare. The Crystalline Collective taught us the value of adaptive shields. Even the primitive Goran tribes forced us to innovate our ground assault protocols. Vex's voice grew more contemptuous. But these humans, they have taught us nothing except that some species are simply too weak to deserve conquest. They lack the biological advantages of the Hellions, the technological sophistication of the Crystallines, or even the savage determination of the Gorans. They are, in every measurable way, inferior. He activated a holographic display showing tactical analyses from the invasion. Their weapons were primitive projectile systems that couldn't penetrate our basic armor. Their military strategy was predictable and rigid. Their leadership crumbled the moment we eliminated their primary command structures. Most tellingly, they showed no capacity for adaptation under pressure. Fleet Command will be interested too. Know that species with this level of development are not worth the resources required for conquest. We could have achieved the same result with a single cruiser and a handful of support vessels. Vex deactivated the recorder and returned to the bridge, where his officers were monitoring routine patrols. The massive view screen showed Earth's dayside, with several major cities still burning from the initial bombardment. Status report, he commanded. All systems nominal, Commander, Zaranine replied. The fleet maintains standard occupation formation. Ground teams report no significant resistance activity. The human survivors appear to be focused on basic survival rather than military action. Reduce patrol frequency to minimum levels, Vex ordered. There's no point in wasting fuel on a dead world. Begin preparations for system departure. We'll leave a single monitoring station and move on to more challenging targets. Sir, communications. Officer Nexfor spoke up hesitantly. We have detected some electromagnetic activity from the planet's surface. It could be the humans attempting to rebuild their communication networks. Vex's mandibles clicked dismissively. Let them talk to each other. What could they possibly accomplish? Their most advanced technology is centuries behind ours. Even if they somehow manage to reverse engineer our equipment, they lack the mathematical frameworks necessary to understand it. Should we investigate the sources of the transmissions? Negative. Focus our resources on preparing for departure. This world has already taken too much of our time. As the Zephyrian fleet settled into its reduced patrol pattern, confident in their absolute superiority, the hidden humans continued their desperate work. In bunkers and caves across the planet, scientists, engineers, and soldiers labored around the clock. Driven by a fury that their alien conquerors couldn't comprehend, they had been underestimated, dismissed as too weak to matter. Soon, the Zephyr would learn the most dangerous lesson in the galaxy: never mistake strategy for weakness, and never assume that silence means surrender. The humans were not defeated. They were preparing. The annihilation, the first sign that something was wrong, came at 0347 hours. Ship time, when Tactical Officer 09 noticed an anomaly in the sensor readings from the Dominion's edge. The display showed what appeared to be a small debris field approximately 2,000 kilometers off Earth's night side. But the composition readings were inconsistent. Commander, she called out, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty that made Vex's head snap around. I'm detecting unusual metallic signatures in Grid 77 Alpha. The computer is having difficulty classifying the materials. Vex moved to her station, his 4 eyes scanning the data streams. Probably debris from one of their primitive satellites. Their technology is so crude our sensors don't recognize it as artificial. Sir, the debris appears to be ... moving. Before Vex could respond, the first cascade disruptor activated. 17 devices, each no larger than a briefcase and invisible to Zephyrian sensors, began transmitting simultaneously from hidden locations across Earth's surface. The carefully crafted signals, based on 72 hours of intensive study of alien communication protocols, flooded the Zephyrian network with false information on the span of 3 seconds. Every ship in the alien fleet received contradictory data about enemy positions, friendly vessel locations, and threat assessments. The Dominion's Edge's tactical computer simultaneously reported that it was under attack by 12 different hostile forces and that all enemy vessels had been destroyed. "What is happening?" Vex roared as alarm klaxons began wailing throughout the ship. His perfectly organized bridge suddenly erupted into chaos as officers struggled to make sense of their malfunctioning displays. "Sir, our sensors are showing multiple hostile contacts, but visual confirmation shows empty space," Zaranine reported, her voice tight with confusion. "The computer is recommending immediate evasive action, but there's nothing to evade." "Then override the computer and rely on visual." "I'm trying, but the targeting systems won't accept manual input. They're locked onto phantom targets." "Commander." Vex felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of conquest. Genuine uncertainty. The Zephyrian Empire's military doctrine was built on technological superiority and perfect information. When that information became unreliable, their entire tactical framework began to collapse. From her hidden command center, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the alien fleet's formation begin to falter as ships tried to maneuver away from threats that existed only in their computers. "Marcus, Phase 2. Marcus Webb's fingers danced across his control board, activating the orbital platforms. All 27 satellites are coming online. 300 kilometers above Earth's surface, a network of early warning satellites that the Zephyrians had dismissed as primitive communication relays suddenly revealed their true purpose. Each platform had been hastily retrofitted with kinetic accelerators, magnetic launchers that could hurl dense tungsten rods at tremendous velocities. The beauty of kinetic weapons was their simplicity. No exotic energy signatures, no plasma discharges, no quantum fluctuations, just mass multiplied by velocity, delivered with surgical precision to targets that couldn't defend against what they couldn't detect. The first salvo struck the Dominion's Edge's port shields just as Vex was trying to re-establish communication with his fleet. The impact sent shockwaves through the massive vessel, causing lights to flicker and crew members to stumble. "We're under attack," Zaranine shouted, stating the obvious. "But I can't locate the source of the weapon's fire." Vex's mandibles clicked. Rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. "Impossible. We destroyed all of their orbital weapons platforms. Sir, the attacks are coming from directly above us, but our sensors show nothing in that vector." Captain James Chun's voice crackled over the hidden communication network that connected human resistance cells across the planet. "This is Chen. All teams report status. London cell operational. We have visual confirmation of shield fluctuations on target Alpha. Tokyo cell reporting successful activation of Cascade Disruptor Array. Enemy formation is breaking apart. Sydney. Cell confirms kinetic strikes are hitting their mark. The lead ship is taking heavy damage." Elena's analysis was proving accurate. The Zephyrians had built their entire military strategy around fighting enemies who used technology they could understand and counter. Energy weapons, missile systems, conventional explosives. All of these could be detected, tracked, and defeated by their advanced defensive systems. But humanity had done something unprecedented. They had taken alien technology and merged it with concepts so primitive that the Zephyrians had never bothered to defend against them. The result was a hybrid warfare doctrine that exploited every gap in the invaders. Defenses. Markers activated the second phase of the orbital bombardment. This time, the tungsten rods were targeting the electromagnetic field generators that powered the Zephyrian shields. Without energy signatures to track, the alien point defense systems couldn't intercept the kinetic projectiles. Aboard the Dominion's Edge, catastrophic failure cascaded through the ship's systems. The shield generators overloaded from the repeated impacts, their safety protocols overwhelmed by damage they weren't designed to handle. Secondary explosions began rippling through the vessel's power grid. Commander, Engineering Officer Kextu burst onto the bridge, his scaled skin pale with shock. The humans have somehow turned our own tactical network against us. Our ships are targeting each other because the computers think we're enemies. Through the chaos, Vex finally began to understand what was happening. The humans hadn't been hiding in fear for the past 3 days. They had been studying, learning, preparing. Every piece of wreckage his fleet had carelessly left behind had been turned into intelligence. Every communication they had broadcast in the clear had been analyzed and decoded. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They're primitives. They don't have the mathematical frameworks to understand our technology." Elena Vasquez, monitoring the alien communications from her bunker, smiled grimly. "That's where you were wrong, Commander. We do have the mathematical frameworks. We just have different ones." The third wave of the human counterattack began. As modified satellites started broadcasting focused electromagnetic pulses directly into the Zephyrian fleet's communication arrays. Unlike the Cascade disruptors, which fed false information into the alien systems, these pulses were designed to cause complete network failure. One by one, the 17 ships of the Zephyrian fleet went dark as their communication systems overloaded. Without the ability to coordinate their movements or share tactical data, the alien vessels began colliding with each other as their automated navigation systems tried to follow contradictory orders. "Sir, we've lost contact with the entire fleet," Communications Officer Nex4 reported. "I'm getting no response from any vessel." Vex watched in growing horror as his perfectly disciplined armada devolved into chaos. Ships were firing on each other because their targeting computers identified friendly vessels as hostile. Others were attempting to retreat to positions that no longer existed, causing collision after collision. But the worst was yet to come. Dr. Elena Vasquez activated the final phase of humanity's revenge. For 3 days, her teams had been studying the quantum resonance drives that powered the Zephyrian fleet. They had discovered something the aliens themselves didn't know. The drives were vulnerable to a specific frequency of harmonic interference. "All teams, initiate quantum disruption protocol," she commanded, across Earth's surface. Hidden transmitters began broadcasting a carefully modulated signal directly into the heart of each alien vessel's power plant. The frequency was based on the natural resonance of the quantum fields that contained the ship's exotic matter fuel. The first ship to suffer catastrophic drive failure was the cruiser Stellar Fang. Its quantum containment field destabilized in a matter of seconds, releasing enough energy to power a small star. The vessel didn't explode so much as it simply ceased to exist, its matter converted instantly into pure energy that lit up Earth's night sky like a second sun. Commander Vex felt his ship shudder as its own drives began to fluctuate. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to stabilize their power systems. But they were fighting a battle they didn't understand against an enemy they had catastrophically underestimated. "Engineering, shut down the quantum drives," he ordered. "Sir, if we shut down the drives, we'll lose gravitational control and fall into the planet's atmosphere. Then we'll crash land and regroup. It's better than complete annihilation." But it was too late. One by one, the ships of the Zephyrian fleet were succumbing to quantum drive failure. Each vessel's destruction created a brilliant flash of light visible from Earth's surface, where human survivors watched their former conquerors die in the vacuum of space. The Dominion's Edge, the largest and most heavily shielded vessel in the fleet, managed to hold together longer than the others. But even its advanced systems couldn't prevent the inevitable. As the quantum field containment began to fail, Vex found himself face to face with a truth that shattered everything he believed about his species' superiority. The humans had outfought them not through superior technology, but through superior thinking. They had taken the Zephyrians' own weapons and turned them into instruments of destruction. They had used the invaders' arrogance and contempt as weapons, more devastating than any energy cannon. In his final moments, as the ship's quantum drive began to collapse around him, Commander Vex understood that he had made the most fundamental error possible in warfare. He had confused strength with understanding, and confidence with wisdom. The humans hadn't been weak. They had been patient. They hadn't been primitive. They had been adaptive. They hadn't been defeated. They had been planning. As the last Sephorian vessel vanished in a burst of quantum fire, Dr. Alina Vasquez stood in her bunker, watching the light show through her periscope. Around her, the surviving members of humanity's resistance raised their voices in a cheer that echoed through the tunnels and caves where they had hidden, planned and prepared their revenge. Captain James Chen joined her at the observation post. "Think there are any survivors?" Alina shook her head. "Not from the fleet. But there might be others out there, other Zephyrian forces who will hear about what happened here." "Let them come," Chen said grimly. "We'll be ready." Above them, Earth's sky began to clear as the last fragments of the alien armada burned up in the atmosphere. The planet that the Zephyrians had dismissed as too weak to matter had become the graveyard of their entire invasion force. The message would spread across the galaxy. Earth was not conquered, Earth was not weak, and anyone who thought otherwise would learn the same lesson as Commander Vex and his fleet. Humanity had fire, and they were not afraid to use it.